Hey, everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for.
UnSpun.
Oh, that was daunting, dude. Look at even Calvin's over there. Hey, look at him. He's like, what just happened?
That's my I got a bit of a hangover.
Oh, you've got a hangover and I sound snotty. I've had the back to school head cold.
Oh,
I
really?
have, yep, tested ever since I had a scratchy throat last Saturday and now it's Thursday. And I've tested for COVID twice a day. All negative. I just have head cold. Old-fashioned cold, and it was like, and I haven't had one for so long. It was very weird. I mean, you never like.
I don't think I've had one yet. I'm trying to think if I had a normal cold. Yeah, I did kind of have one. I had that terrible cough when I was traveling, but never was.
I was going to say, didn't you have one when you came back from Machu Picchu?
Yeah, but it wasn't a cold. It was just a cough. I never had a cold. Anyways, it wasn't anything. Anyways,
okay. Speaking of travel,
I was out a bit late. Just so we'll get to it because I was out at the UBCM function, but we'll talk about UBCM later. But that's why It's not like I was just out late with friends.
There was some business. It was all about business, and maybe a little bit of red wine.
A little bit of wine,
maybe. Let's start with what is happening. Standing up in Parliament and throwing out the hardline accusation that India is responsible for the death of a Canadian on Canadian soil. That is a huge thing for Justin Trudeau to have done, making a massive statement. Your thoughts on what you've seen unfold over the last number of days and how things have escalated since?
Very unusual to take that kind of aggressive stance. And obviously the story has got so many different kinds of angles as far as the separatist thing, and there's just so many different parts of it. But I guess at some point, and of course he has support from all the other parties in which is unusual as well. The Conservatives are supporting him as well. I think obviously this is something very, very serious. You can't just come in if the accusations are correct, come in and kill somebody in somebody else's country. It's just no matter who that person is. It's just not cool. It's like a spy movie, though, right? I mean, you don't think this kind of stuff really happens. You think this is James Bond? What's happening here? So a really aggressive stance by the Prime Minister, and obviously repercussions. I have a trip planned for India in March for a friend's birthday. He's like, don't worry, this will be he's a former diplomat. He's like, this will last a week, and then he'll be back. So he's very bullish on this being a short-term thing. Obviously, from my point of view, it seems like a lot of tension with India and Canada. Because their prime minister is kind of Trumpy, right? In India, he's sort of
Modi, Modi
populist. So
but this and the whole thing of him not necessarily him being our prime minister, Prime Minister Trudeau being in India, and then his plane being stuck there because of mechanical, and there's just so many pieces of this that when looking at it in hindsight now, it's like, who knew what when, and what is really at play here? And as you mentioned, strained relations with Modi anyway. And what happened in Surrey outside of the Gurdwara, pardon me if I'm mispronouncing things here, but Najjar, the leader there, the Sikh leader who was gunned down outside of the Gurdwara in Surrey, and then vehicle lit on fire, like very much a targeted situation, and what that means. Not unusual for such things to happen in Surrey, but certainly unusual for a leader of his level, and with the looking for ties to gangs and drugs and that kind of war that we've seen across Metro Vancouver playing out for the last decade plus. This just all, as you said, it plays out as terrifyingly foreign interference based, and now India will be put into the inquiry, the public inquiry that is all about foreign interference, because it's not just about China, it's about all foreign influences. And we got to be aware that Russia is volatile. China is volatile. North Korea is volatile. Like India, there's some power behind these countries, and we are ill prepared in Canada. I mean, that is just a fact, Jack. We don't have the rules, we don't have the laws, we don't have the infrastructure, and frankly, the populace. Like, we're the size of California, for crying out loud. But look at our landmass, and look at how ripe for the picking we are to just have the bits of interference. And who knows if all of this picture is true, or if it's way bigger than this, or if it's a little bit smaller and it's being blown up. Like, we don't know. So the next weeks and months.
The India is, with the China issue, there's a lot of assumptions. A lot of the manufacturing is, being enticed to move to India because of, as a more stable place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So, there's lots of geopolitical impact this has, and it's certainly strained relationships between the country with 1 billion people. And obviously, Canada has a lot of South Asian people here from India. And
for sure. The proper term here is diaspora. Are you familiar with this word? I'm just learning this now. Sam Cooper pretty much taught it to me. It is about a people, wherever they might be from, living in a land they don't hail from, right? So you can call refugee, migrants, immigrants, whatever you want to, whatever, all of those words, diaspora community, because there are people within the diaspora community who have family and extended family and marriage related and children and grandchildren, whatever, who are of the country that they now reside in. So it's not like everybody's from somewhere else and they should just go on back home. Like we keep hearing the intolerant far right say, like, this is a concern. This is my biggest concern here. Because I mean, I have friends who are deeply affected by this. And I'm having conversations with them asking for education, because some of the talking points, George, my goodness, just the drawing lines to bombing of airlines and who and what and then genocide and the splitting up of areas of India. And there's a whole history there that, most of my knowledge, frankly, on the subject comes from watching Anthony Bourdain travel through India and explain how families were torn apart when it was split off, and how religion cut a line through this continent and created some of what we see in the divisiveness, and it rips apart. My family, my mom was born in Yugoslavia, so I'm not unfamiliar with political and religious stances ripping apart communities. Are you Serb or Croat? My grandfather was like, I'm Yugoslav, but that wasn't good enough. You had to pick a side. You got to pick a side, and then you go one out from it, and the diaspora, so the people who you would look at and say, you're likely from somewhere in this part of the world, whatever that might be. And then the ignorant people are going to blame all of the diaspora for what might be one incident, because they're bad people. They're bad people in every race, walk, and religion, in every country, every corner of this world. But they're also, the majority are good people just trying their best. And I worry for a community that's now going to be targeted by intolerant ignorance and bigots.
Yeah, the racism definitely is. We saw that with the Chinese community over the last several years, the China stuff, and now we'll probably see that with the South Asian and the people who are many generations in Canada, probably more than my family, being attacked for their color of their skin. It's just brutal. But this policy, this decision, what do you do? What do you do when you're, I think you have to take a hard line. You kind of have to say, whoa, you can't come into our country and do that. Otherwise, we're just, what are we? We have no stance on anything. So it's interesting. Obviously with Trudeau's, and we talked about this last week with his polling numbers at the bottom of the heap. I'm not sure how this will help him, but strength and leadership is always a good tool to get your popularity rate, ranking.
And maybe flip the script, right? Flip the script. Everybody's not talking about that. And then you got Pierre Poilievre, who was standing at the podium taking questions, as he often does. Someone brings up India and he goes, yep, nope, and walks away. It was like, yeah, it's hard to disagree on. It'll be interesting, political football, right? I'm using the terms that you've taught me. Let's bring it back to BC, as you mentioned. UBCM, which let's start with the UBCM here, because there's some interesting politics happening within this yearly gathering. Give your overall explanation and perspective for somebody who's listening to our podcast or watching us right now and goes, I have no idea what UBCM is.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Union of BC Municipalities. So all the municipalities, it's an organization where they get together and they talk about policies, they share knowledge, that kind of stuff, right? So it's a conference and an organization that does a bunch of other things. But every year they put stuff on the floor, usually political or with, focus to send a message to the provincial government about whatever specific issue that they may or may want to raise, that they think that, the province needs to change the policy on this or that. And this is where all of us municipalities stand. Gordon Campbell used to use UBCM in a really effective way to engage with the smaller towns across BC. He was really generous to municipal governments, and he'd always have these huge announcements at UBCM. Every year he'd come with a little gift bag of things for all the municipalities. That's how he kept being very successful. Exactly. Yeah. So Friday morning we'll hear from the Premier, his first announcements at what the NDP might have to offer. But they did make you pointed out one thing they voted on this morning. I think it was, you said.
Yep.
They voted on related
Thursday morning.
COVID. Yep. What was that?
So that one was the fact that they decided after some, according to Richard Zussman, because I didn't witness it personally, so Richard gets the shine here, is that he put out a tweet that said after vigorous and heated debate, much debate, it was voted, the motion was to return unvaccinated workers to the healthcare environment, was voted down. And the argument was that our healthcare system is exhausted and stretched so thin, and there are people sitting on the sidelines who refuse to be vaccinated who could support the workforce. And BC is the only jurisdiction in the country that continues to have that line in the sand drawn that, our healthcare is vulnerable to the virus in ways that other jurisdictions might not be, because we have a more elder population, a lot of people who live on the edge of immunity are in British Columbia. We're kind of the Hawaii of Canada, and people just gravitate towards here. And in all the things that I've heard, that's sort of the reasoning behind it. It's like we have more long-term care spaces in this province, and that's where, and I don't know the answer to it, but I
that's the challenge. I mean,
that's the challenge.
The motion, as I said, it's a request to the province to change their policy.
Right.
Generally, this NDP government hasn't been very who cares? I don't care about what you have to say, UBCM. So it'll probably go nowhere, but it does draw attention to the dilemma that the NDP are in on this issue. They took a hard line in the heat of the COVID outbreak, where they said, they were on this issue on healthcare workers. We were actually very easygoing on a lot of other things in this province, like schools, and where we let kids get back to school way any sooner than other provinces. But this one issue,
we were the only jurisdiction in North America to keep schools open.
Yeah.
Period. And the only part of school that was closed was the last few months of 2020. Spring break, it paused. Schools were closed.
As a parent, that's on that.
I did. Yeah. And you know what? I think our kids are not as far behind as other jurisdictions because of it. And it's a different population. But I've also spent time in a long-term care home during a pandemic, and it was terrifying. Yeah.
But the NDP now have to make a decision. Backtrack on this decision about being tough, and going back to what we talked about with the Prime Minister on India. It's kind of like that. How do you backpedal on something? Can you backpedal 2 years later? Is that okay? What is and it was a different.
See, I don't look at it as a backpedal. Honestly, George, I got to say, I know politically that's a thing to say, but in our backpedal, I think we've learned a lot in the last 2 years about COVID. And so I don't think it's a backpedal to say, okay, we're now at a place where it is safe to have people. And listen, I am not supporting anti-vax stance. Let's just be clear on that. But at the same time, I'm looking at it. Sorry, we're cross-talking. Nobody can hear us when we cross-talk. So let's pause.
Won't that be what they worry about? That it'll be like they're supporting
But can I say what I was going to say? Because I'm not really talking about what they're going to say. I'm giving the unspun take on, right? So my take is that I don't look at it as a backpedal if they say, you know what, we are going to allow unvaccinated healthcare workers in some environments. I don't think that would be a backpedal. I would understand where they say, hey, listen, cancer wards, BC cancer, so people that can't get vaccinated can't have unvaccinated people around them. The new vaccine that's coming this fall is way better at preventing spread, which is great news. So if that's true, then are there some healthcare environments that would be safe? That's my unspun take. I think that if there was a move to shore up some areas of healthcare, I wouldn't look at that as a backpedal. I would look at that as, okay, we're moving forward where we need to take care of people. If the mammogram worker,
I see a real hypocrisy there. If they were to go, okay, you guys who are against our policy back then, and you guys can go back to work, but the rest of you can't. You either do it or you don't do it. That's what the province has.
But I'm talking about unspun though, George, and that's the conversation that you and I are having. I don't care what the reaction will be to the government at this moment. I think that there is room, and I wouldn't call it, you said backpedal, so I'm going back to my backpedal thing, is Julie Nolan right now. Are you watching on Twitter, Julie Nolan, our colleague, right? So she has breast cancer. She had to wait months and months and months to get a mammogram and an ultrasound to find out just how aggressive and awful her breast cancer diagnosis was. Once they had found the lump and identified that she had it, now we need you to find out what kind of treatment you need. It took ages. Maybe there's a way to get, the people that run the mammogram, the radiologists and the ultrasound technicians, and you can have it posted that, this is an environment where, if you're immunocompromised, you need us to let us know in advance. Like, I think we can be smarter than that. I think we can walk and chew gum here. But then I'm mushy middle. That's okay. We're allowed to disagree. Look at us.
To me, this is a communications issue, which is a spin issue. And so the province is in this dilemma where they have to make a decision about a decision they made to say that was meant to be show how tough they were, to suddenly say, okay, now we're going to be easy on the people that we were tough on because times are different now. But those people still contravene. We're against the policy, and we're very vocal about it, and we're standing. And as we remember, putting what was being communicated to us at the time, that people's lives in danger because they were not getting vaccinated. So,
right,
why
that maintains.
The province needs to decide if they. Why would you want? I'm not saying this is my judgment, or why would you want those people who are against your policy, who clearly don't support the government's policies on this issue, back in the system? I would say that the province is I would be very surprised if they were to say, okay, come on back. I think that would be a really challenging communications challenge for them, because it would show hypocrisy. Okay, so you're not tough on so all that. See,
I think you're taking a leap of you're calling it hypocrisy when we're 2 years later in something we didn't even know where we were when they were like, hold the phone, people are dying. Our health system is overwhelmed with people with COVID. People are dying like en masse due to this across the globe. We are in crisis here. We are in a different place now. We have heard that from scientists across the planet. And now I believe, and I welcome scientists to correct me, I believe that the greatest risk are for people who are unvaccinated. Like, the unvaccinated populace is at more risk today than the vaccinated population. So the issue now is, don't put unvaccinated people or people who can't be vaccinated, who are immunocompromised or in need of health care, in a place or space where there might be an outbreak of COVID because of unvaccinated people. So are there areas of our healthcare, because our healthcare system is a big tent, isn't it?
It sounds so complicated that I can't imagine how they would actually even do that. Not to mention the fact that I think the BC United would just jump on this of showing the weakness of this government, and it'd be a very effective device for the BC United to go after them. And on the other side, with the surge of the Conservatives in BC, could say, why aren't you doing this? Why are you not letting these people back? So you have this challenge, the NDP, who are sitting in the middle. You got the BC United, who are going to say, you're backpedaling, which is the word I'm using, and you'll have these conservatives saying you're
Now you're just using it to piss me off.
no, but
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Conservatives are going to say, you guys are
confusing.
Yeah. No, the conservatives are going to use it the other way. So NDP, go, oh God, what do we do? I just don't think they'll do it.
So let's talk about the Conservative, BC United, NDP on SOGI 123 and what we saw with the Million Children March or whatever the hell those crazies were calling themselves. And they are crazy.
Oh.
Stop harassing children. Read SOGI 123. It's not grooming. Jesus, Murphy. So, Kevin Falcon kind of came out with like, yeah, I don't like this being taught in schools. And I think somebody was like, Kevin, read it. Because I read it, right? Because when SOGI arrived, you and I had kids that were at that, gentle moment. And I believe in sex ed in schools. So I'm one of the parents that,
There's no sex in schools.
Yeah, don't add to the population.
Kids,
don't add to the population.
Learn about it, but don't you touch my.
Don't you do it. But you got to learn about it. But interesting though, and then the BC United leader Kevin Falcon sort of put out a statement that sounded a bit intolerant, and then he kind of switched it a little bit, which left room for the Conservatives to say it has no place in schools, and if we're elected, we will end SOGI 123. And I'm like, well, there goes a bunch of people, Because come on.
It's interesting because obviously you want, and you saw some people sort of saying, well, this is about freedom of speech, and it's a point. Let people need to protest if they want to say something the exact opposite of what so let them have their protest, of course. And so there was some stuff put out by several organizations of high, provincial certainly that were calling being very inflammatory about this protest, which is never good. The best way to treat sometimes protest is just ignore it. If you don't like it, just ignore it. Don't feed into it. So yeah, I think again, this is another example. This is, Kevin Falcon, he's trying to play both sides here because he's losing a lot of support in the north and in all these potential conservative ridings, and they'll split the vote. And NDP are just going, oh, thank you very much. I'll take those ridings. Excellent. Yeah. I'll take that one and that one and that one, and you guys can have zero.
Where was the pivot there, like beyond the name change? I know we talked a little bit about this last week for the BC United, former BC Liberal Party, and the popularity dip, and now the BC Conservatives have status in the legislature with the Abbotsford MLA walking across the aisle.
Big bucks for the Conservatives. It's it means a lot to get official status. You get an office, you get all sorts of staff, you get, it's a big deal. So it's not good for the BC United. I mean, we talked about this a long time ago, and I was very like, don't change their name. Like, don't.
You did. You really, really did. You're like, what are you doing?
Confuses people. So it can be a new party, like the ABC in Vancouver managed to surge and win in Vancouver, but they weren't the NPA trying to change its name, even though they kind of were. But, they were all the NPA people went over there, but they were still the NPA. And so you had a successful, and there's lots of, and the BC Liberals originally, that's, Gordon Campbell took it over, and he intentionally didn't change the name because he liked the fact that it was confusing, in that the centrists would know where to go if the right leader made sense to them. Now with the BC United, it's simply considered Conservative Party, but it's not the Conservative Party because we have a Conservative Party. So now people are like, so where is the BC United the Liberal Party now? Which is what they changed their name from. So it's
right. And you had that, but then popularity at the federal level for the Liberals ain't so great right now. And with Pierre Poilievre surging, that serves the BC Conservatives to be like, oh, so this is the Poilievre Party in BC. Oh, okay. There's lots of people in the interior that'll be like, right. Now I know who I'm voting for, or whatever.
Exactly. And that's a real thing. The cities, the major markets like Vancouver, and like these are NDP strongholds. Vancouver Island, they're not switching to anybody else.
No.
And so you look at this sort of situation. It's very similar to the United States, where you have major markets are Democrat, outside those major markets is Republican.
Right.
We have that challenge across Canada. Centrists and left are the cities. And the Conservatives are. So it's a question of how many seats can they take from
That's true.
And for the BC United, who right now almost only have seats outside the city, it's bad for them.
But it can be some significant vote splitting, right? Like you're splitting the right. which
dream come true for any other party. Believe me, it's in politics. There is you quite often you'll see the same funders funding the opposition parties or other parties in order for them to be successful.
Stronger. We saw that in the U.S. Weren't the Democrats doing that, like supporting Trump Republicans in the midterms? Just to, it was like, wow. Okay,
well, say like the NDP probably get funded by the Conservatives in Canada to ensure that Liberals are weakened. So
right,
how it works.
God. This is why we're called Unspun, guys, just in case you were wondering. You got to be following George on social media. He's taught me a lot over the last, 225 episodes? We're at 226.
26 or 26 or something. I don't know.
226 episodes of Unspun Podcast. Unspunpodcast.com. If you want to share this with your friends, you can find George on Twitter at George_Affleck. You did very well for a hungover dude today. George_Affleck. I'm at Jody Vance. I want to stay with UBCM for just a second because there was also some transit talk at UBCM. Basically, hey, if we're going to keep growing like this, we better build some transit, guys.
Yeah. You drive right now, once you leave Langley and you hit the highway out to Abbotsford, you're just stuck in traffic. And so, hey, guess what? There used to be a rail line along there when I was a kid. It's all gone now, but they could have had a nice rail line right there. But it's all gone for the most part. There's still a little bit of it left in Burnaby.
Was it on the north side of the highway?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So that some of it's still there if you drive along, the north, just past the North Road there in that area. So
why is it taking so long?
I know. Well, that's the thing, and we got the West Coast Express, which is like the most highly successful, most profitable, route, and it doesn't even operate more than 6 trains a day or something. It's so minimal, and you need something. And they're getting the SkyTrain to Langley, but is SkyTrain the right technology for commuter rail? Probably not. So what's the deal? But they're even just like the UBC, what's happening with that? Are we going to get an announcement about that? We need to get going because we want to keep that plowing through if we can, which is long. It's my office now, by the way. It's like, I can't hear it anymore. I think it must be somewhere past Granville now.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. It is coming close to Arbutus.
Have you ever seen it? Anybody who has a chance to, if you can.
The big boring thing?
Yeah, it's super cool.
Oh, I've seen it. It's the world's largest. It looks like a massive jet engine meets a corkscrew.
Yeah. That's one bottle
wild.
Don't want
yeah. Yeah. I don't know where to go next. You know what? Let's go to the one more thing, super political. The ousted MLA from the NDP, Walker, this guy, what's the secrecy around this Qualicum MLA?
It's so weird because a week before he was attacked by a deer and he was all over the news for that. And then a week later, he's getting kicked out of the NDP. I'm like, what is going on with this guy? And they're being very, very secret, which means it must be really bad. But
if it's really bad, George, how is it kept secret and he's allowed to run as an independent? Or not run, but sit as an independent.
Yeah, I don't know. It's unusual, but clearly there's got to be charges coming or something. But yeah, it's very unusual, and and Eby was very hardcore. No, this guy, I'm done.
It was terse.
Not a slap.
And I wish I could tell you more, but I can't. It's
so
I don't understand that.
It's a criminal investigation, I guess. So you can't talk about it. If there's cops involved, you can't actually talk. And cops and lawyers, basically, you're not allowed to. But we don't know. So I mean, we don't know. We're just speculating, by the way. But it must be serious. But he's very clear that he said he will fight and clear his name of whatever it is. He's not saying what it is either. So very unusual.
Yeah, he also said, "I wish I could," and I'm like, somebody knows. Somebody knows.
Imagine if Trump followed the same when he was told not to say it.
No, I'm right.
Doesn't seem to follow those rules.
Dude, we could talk about Trump for a whole hour here and still not scratch the surface. You mentioned cops. Let's talk about what's happening in Surrey. The saga continues, man. It's like the Mayor Brenda Locke tour of now targeting the Metro or the police board that she chairs. I don't trust the board. You're the chairperson. How does this continue?
I don't know. I don't understand what her end game is anymore. I feel like she's really dug herself in and she's just not willing to compromise. And in politics, all about compromise in the end. You can't win. You can, you gotta learn how to compromise. That's politics. And I think she could try and get more money out of the province, I think, if she wanted to, but it doesn't seem to be that's what she's looking for. It just seems like she just wants RCP to come back. And I'm thinking, well, I don't think that's happening.
Right. Who's whispering in her ear? She can't be coming up with all this on her own. She can't be. Somebody is pulling some strings here. Right?
Well, I know a lot of comms people. I don't know any of that are working for her right now. So I don't know.
Maybe she is just saying, I said it and I won and I'm going to just keep doing this. Like, what happens next? Do the feds step in and does the federal government step in and tell Surrey RCMP, stand down, transition, we're done, you're out? Or does the province step in and say, listen, move forward with this or resign? Like, this is public safety. This is, I mean, or just push forward from the SPS.
Yeah, and as you know, when we talked about this, municipalities are acting at the pleasure of the province. So the province,
you taught me that, controls
the municipal charter and the act, the Vancouver Charter, the municipal act, and they can do anything. They can say to a council that you're fired. So they'd have to fire the whole council. I think they can't just say to the mayor. I don't think.
And they would just hold another election, and
they would take over. I did it for Vancouver School Board, right?
Right.
Ago. So, they've done it a couple times in Vancouver. But I don't think I've ever heard of it happening. Well, I think there was a municipal government. I'm trying to remember. There was one that was, I forget which one though, but I know I have to look back. I'll see if I can find it for next week. But there was, but it can happen, I suppose. And I can't see it going that far because the NDP still look at Surrey. They know that's a balancing act there for the next election in 1 year. So they're also kind of going, okay, how hard do we want to push on this? Right now, we've done our thing, and she's digging her own, hole. And in the next election, they'll probably be fine. And for the NDP in that riding, which is a swing riding, it's a lot of swing ridings in Surrey. So we'll see if I think if they took a real hard stance, that might.
Only 35% of the population of Surrey voted in that election. So when people are screaming, we voted for the RCMP, it's like, yeah, the people who turned out to vote definitely did. But 65% of the people who live in Surrey did not vote. So how can you assume their position? So would a referendum have made sense here?
I hate referendums. I mean, I've been involved.
I know you do, but I
just think that you have an elections referendum. So,
right.
The province could call a referendum, but why? I think the decisions are made. It's time to move on. It's done.
Move on. Yeah. See, that was kind of a bit of a retort.
I know. I just wonder if she's got polling that's telling her something that we don't know. Like, I don't know.
Maybe.
It's expensive to do that kind of stuff. So where's that money coming from? Who's doing that? Or is she just going on instinct here of some... I don't know. It's strange. It's very strange. It's very strange.
It's very strange. I want to add one more thing before we wrap up. I kind of lost track of time here. This overpass debacle in North Vancouver that happened this week, where the truck hit the overpass and then it was Carmageddon and everybody's stuck. I mean, traffic sucks in North Van without a truck hitting an overpass, and then everybody's stuck, and then it's a hit and run, and then the driver fled the scene, and then the trucking company gets fined $368, has their license suspended because they're not cooperating with police. The police are saying they don't know the name of the truck driver because obviously the trucking company is not cooperating, and it's like, where are we in this upside down world that this is even possible?
And why are these trucks keep hitting these things? What is happening with the trucking industry? Come on, guys. It's embarrassing. Yeah. It's embarrassing. Put your back things down, for God's sakes. But this is, this is criminal behavior right now. Fleeing a scene, this is a lot of bad moves by this company, and we'll see what they do. But I would imagine the police are taking a very special interest in this. And they, they'll start doing their investigation into it, and they'll figure out who it is. I mean, it can't be very difficult.
How difficult is it to change the punishment for such things? Could Rob Fleming, as the transportation minister, could he just say, okay, now
doesn't seem like a lot.
$368? Yeah. Come on.
That seems like an easy one. Just put a 0 or 2 zeros after it.
How about it's escalating? I'm all about the escalating fines. Like, Sure, you can make a mistake.
Yeah.
But once it doesn't live on their record. Like, where's the record? See, again, with the way we're set up, we're a very forgiving, oops kind of situation on so many levels in Canada right now. And we're watching all of those oopses being used in ways that are costing. And it's not just about money. It's about costing of community. Like the frustration around this, we're on the hook. Somebody gets a $368 fine and taxpayers have to pay for whatever it costs to fix the overpass. Like, how about you got to pay for the overpass? How about there is no more insurance for that? You hit an overpass, you're on the line for it until you're bankrupt.
So maybe that's a question for ICBC then.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pay for this. I don't want to pay for it. Measure your load, for Christ's sake. It's 52 feet. I don't work in trucking. And I understand that it's 52. But you got to be under 52.
Have you ever been on those double-decker buses out to the...
They scare me. I won't do it.
I know. You sit on the top, you feel like you're going to hit when you're going through the tunnel.
Can't do it.
Like...
I hate the tunnel anyway. That was my first column I ever wrote for the Orca, was how much I just can't with the tunnel. And I've had to travel it at least twice a day for the last 4 months in caring for my folks and all of the crises we were in.
That bridge was supposed to be open by now. Like, good God.
I'm angry about it. I don't care who's in power. I am mad that thing has not been replaced. We have had governments of all stripes screw that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's frustrating as crazy.
What time is it?
I don't know. It's time to go. It's got to be 30 minutes. I'm going to guess it's 36 minutes and 42 seconds. So you let me know how long it was.
Well, that's happening.
I know. Well, we got a little heated today. I liked it. I feel a little like my blood pressure's down.
People at home going, this is uncomfortable. Oh, no.
Were they?
No.
Oh, no. We get along. We do not come from that. I got to go fight with Linda for the rest of the evening. So I'll see you later.
Have a good show.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.